All right, welcome back to All Cars Y'all. I am John. It has been a hot minute since I've given you an update on the Volvo Silver Bullet here. If you haven't seen some of my earlier videos about it, please check those out. I've owned this car for a little over a year now, not quite a year and a half. I bought this for my son. It's a 2002 Volvo V70 2.4T, and well, it's meant for my son to get him through college. And we got it for somewhere around $5,000, something like that. And it's been reliable from the perspective that it starts every day and it gets him where it needs to go, but it has not been perfect. And it's been a little bit of a problem recently, as a matter of fact. So I thought I'd give you a quick update, just kind of what we're going through here, buying a 20-some-odd-year-old car, specifically a Volvo that's meant to be very, very reliable. So the first thing is like I said, I bought this for my son. He uses it to get back and forth to school and to work and everything else. Honestly, kind of looks like he's living in it, as a matter of fact, but he's not. And we had a couple problems when we got it. When we bought this, it only had about 50 some odd thousand miles on it, and we got it for, again, a little over $5,000. And a fantastic deal when we were looking for cars and they were $14,000, $15,000, $16,000 to stumble across a 20-year-old car, but $5,000, it was a deal. Now, we had a few problems with it. A couple of things that were kind of questionable about it. One thing, I don't remember if I mentioned it before in previous videos, there was a gasoline odor from it. Back here, the rear tire, near that, there's the fuel filter. And we kind of identified that. We changed it, and then my son, he went in and did his business with wrapping it up and tape. There's still once in a while a little odor from it, but anything else we did, we would need to start tearing out parts of the fuel system. The fuel pump is actually back here under the carpet, so you actually have to start tearing out parts of the back to get to the fuel filter. I'm afraid that's maybe one of the next things we would need to do, but it's been so minor, it's just been kind of okay. Now, there's a couple of other minor issues that have come up, like at the front here, one of the wipers for the front headlights doesn't actually go down all the way. More concerningly is that all of the lights on the dashboard started to come on, and my son did a couple of things. He thought maybe it was a switch behind the brake. He replaced that. It didn't work. We actually took it to a mechanic, and they did some diagnostics on it, and they determined it was the ECM, the computer control module. And the problem is this, that everything works on the car. The anti-lock brake works, everything else works, but replacing the ECM, if they could find one, would be about $2,500. That's basically more than the entire car is worth. So because everything works, we just decided to kind of leave it. Now, more recently, the problem has been it started leaking oil. Now, I had noticed this, but it was pretty minor, as a matter of fact. We went on vacation, and when we came back, I noticed that the splotches here on the concrete were much, much bigger. So I told my son, hey, you need to take a look at this. You need to check the drain plug, the oil filter, see where the leak is coming from. When he finally got to it, we parked down here at the road, I'll show you in a second, and everything looked okay, except the oil filter was a little dirty. When we checked the oil level, bone dry. There was nothing on the dipstick at all. Very, very, very concerning. So we changed the oil filter, checked everything was tight, filled up with oil, pulled it in the driveway, ran it for about 10 minutes, and oil wasn't pouring, but dripping out of the back. So I started to take this a lot more seriously and get involved. So let's see if I can get the hood open here real quick. We started doing some investigation, and my son and I found two different things. The first is I found that for the turbo, there's a return line here at the back of the engine, and the gasket up against the engine is infamous for falling apart, basically, and leaking. I thought it might be that. The second thing is he found out that the camshaft seal, I think is what it was called, it could come out and start leaking as well, and it met all of the requirements for what was going on here. And what we found was that the plug was not leaking. The seal, the O-ring around the filter, was not leaking. It was coming from somewhere up here. And I decided, because some of this started to sound really serious, we needed to take it to a mechanic. And we did. Same mechanic that diagnosed the ECM, as a matter of fact. And the answer was really surprising. I was expecting a lot of money, especially if we started tearing apart the camshaft area. But it wasn't. And it wasn't the gasket for the oil return from the turbo. Get this. It's the oil filler cap. When they did their diagnostic, they took that cap off right there. They took that cover off, exposing where the spark plugs were. And what they found was pools of oil in that area around the spark plugs. It appears that the oil was under pressure in the engine, being pushed out through the cap, flowing down beneath the cover and pooling up there before it ran down the back of the engine. And that's what we were seeing. Now, I wanted to use logic and not believe this. And I talked to them about it. And they said they, investigated, they looked, they showed me pictures, they put it up on a lift, they got everything kind of fixed up, replaced the cap, obviously, and ran it for about 45 minutes with no oil leaks by replacing the cap. It's been about 4 days now, and we check this every time he gets in. He leaves for work, he checks it. He leaves work at 10 o'clock at night, he checks it. And the oil level has been perfect. So I want to believe that's not the issue, but it seems to have fixed it. Do I expect more problems with this car? Well, absolutely. It's 20 years old, and I think some of this is a warning sign that some of the gaskets are going to start going. I think it's going to need some attention. Is it going to be worth it to continue to keep it for 2, 3, 4, 5 years while he goes away to college? I don't know. I find myself really wondering that, because if a gasket goes out and he's 2 hours away on his way up into the mountains, might be better to have something newer where at least everything is fresher. But so far, the car has been absolutely flawless. He loves it. It's unbelievably comfortable. I love it. I don't know. This kind of thing just makes me pretty nervous. Thanks for being here, guys. Let me know your thoughts below.